Looking at our world from a theological perspective. This is the Theology Central Podcast, making theology central.
Good morning, everyone. It is Sunday, September the 19th, 2021. It is currently 8:34 a.m. Central Time, and once again, I'm coming to you live from the empty sanctuary of Victory Baptist Church, located right here in Ovalo, Texas. And once again, I would like to welcome you to a brand new week of Bible study. It is Sunday morning, and I think this is the perfect time to go ahead and introduce a new week of Bible study. This week should be a very interesting week of study. Every week when we get ready to start that new week of study, it's always interesting because I don't ever know exactly where it's going to end up because so many things influence how we approach the text. First, the text itself. Every text itself has its own challenges, its own difficulties, its own, very interesting things, its own treasures waiting to be discovered. Every text, in a sense, is different in certain ways. And so I don't think we can always take the exact same approach. And another thing that basically makes it impossible for me to really know where we're going to end up is your feedback and your input and your study and your questions. Because if you send me an email saying, well, what about this or what about that, or look what I discovered, sometimes that will immediately change my whole thinking or perspective on the passage. I'm like, you know what? We're going to go this way because someone discovered this or someone saw this or someone pointed this out and I've missed it completely. So you're a vital part of this. You really determine a lot of times what we're going to look at and what we're not going to look at. And please note, anytime there's any questions you have on a text, all you have to do is email me and we'll dedicate an entire episode, an entire session of study to your question if it requires that much time. So it's a new week. I don't know where we're going to end up, but I know this. Hopefully, let me state this. Maybe I'm a little naive, maybe I'm a little hopeful, but in my mind, I always think that we're going to end up at the end of the week understanding the text better than when we started. That is my goal. All right. I can't always say I guess I could be arrogant and say we accomplish that every single week. I hope that we do, but I cannot be sure. You're the only one who actually knows. Well, put it this way. I can state this dogmatically. By the time I get to the end of the week, I always understand the passage better than when I started. That much is true. I hope it's true of you. I think it really depends on how much time and effort and how disciplined you are in studying the text. If you will put forth the effort and spend all week doing all of the things I'm giving you to do and all of the things I'm asking you to do, I think by the end of the week, you will understand the text better than you did before. I know that may sound like that I'm bragging there or boasting, but I'm not trying to brag or boast. I just think that we are committing an entire week to studying one passage of Scripture. That's what we have been doing. That's the Bible study exercise kind of method now. Here's 1 week. Here's one passage of Scripture. Let's dig in. And I think if you dedicate an entire week and you're really studying it every single day, I think that's going to be the end result is you're going to understand the passage better than you ever had before. And I know what you could be saying. Wait a minute. I've studied the passage 15 times, and each time I studied it for a week. I understand that, but I think if you dedicate another week of study, especially being guided and being given all the things that I'm asking you to do, I still think you'll come to a more fuller understanding of the text than you had before. At least that's always my goal. And that's what I'm going to attempt to do. And that's what I'm going to try to do. So I hope you're ready. We have a lot to do. This text does provide us a lot to work on. I think what we're going to do today is I'm going to introduce our new week of study in a different way. One of the things I typically have done is just kind of at the beginning of the week, read the entire text for you. But I'm not going to do that today. I think the key concept today is going to be transition or a textual bridge. how should we put this? Context. We're transitioning into a new section, right? In other words, we finished last week's study, so now we have a new text in front of us, and it's a continuation. But it's very easy sometimes when you continue on, like, okay, last week I studied this, now this week I'm studying this. Sometimes we don't transition a smooth transition. It's more like stop, start. It's almost like a clean break. But we cannot do that, and I especially don't think we can do that today. So what we're going to do is try to have a smooth transition, build a bridge between what came before, what is going to come after, because I think that there is a connection, and I may not have thought about this connection until yesterday when we were finishing up yesterday's, last week's study. When there was a certain verse that we read, and at first I'd kind of just dismissed it. I'm like, okay, no big deal. But the more I think about it, the more I'm thinking that was a mistake. So we're going to go back and we're going to use that verse kind of as the bridge to help us in a smooth transition to introduce this new week of study and this new section of Scripture that we're going to be looking at. Hopefully that will all make sense. So are you ready? Okay, so let's introduce this. This week, we are going to be studying 1 Kings chapter 19, verses 19 to 21. 1 Kings chapter 19, 19 to 21. And then we're going to jump to 2 Kings chapter 2, verses 6 through 14. That is what is on your agenda this week. That is the passage you need to become very, very good friends with. This is a passage you need to live with. You need to read it over and over and over. You need to just feed upon it, meditate on it, and you need to obviously start doing outlining. I think what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to create two outlines, right? 1 Kings chapter 19, verses 19 to 21, outline that. Then jump to 2 Kings chapter 2, 6 through 14, and outline that. Make it two separate outlines. You don't want to merge the outlines together because you're dealing with two completely different sections of Scripture. Now, we're following the curriculum, which will provide its own challenges because we're skipping, right? We're jumping. And I'm not a big fan of that, but that's what the curriculum wants. So we're going to look at it the way they have put it, the way they have included it in the curriculum. We're going to go with their method, all right? And that will provide us our own challenges to ensure that we're not ripping anything out of context and that we're handling the text correctly, because there's always some dangers there. Again, 1 Kings chapter 19, 19 to 21, and then jump to 2 Kings chapter 2, verses 6 through 14. Now, the key, what we're going to have to figure out, and you can already start looking at this, why did they put those two passages together? Those who put together the curriculum, why did they put those two passages together? And again, if you're brand new to this and you would like to have access to the curriculum, go to theologycentral.net, go to the blog section, look for the article entitled Daily Discipleship Guide, follow the link, you register at ministrygrid.com, and you'll have access to all of the curriculum. It's free for you. We have a listener currently paying the subscription to allow people to get access to the curriculum, and we are very grateful for that listener. And so please, by all means, use it, sign up for it, because it's to supplement what we're doing. But we're going to have to figure out why did they put these two passages together. I don't think it's going to be too hard to figure out. I think we could do this. There's really two questions. Why did they put these two passages together? And does that, putting these two passages together, does it create some kind of a problem? Does it cause us to misunderstand the text? Does it cause us to misinterpret the text? We want to just be on the lookout for any possible dangers that this could lead to, all right? Or that we need to be on the lookout for. So again, 1 Kings chapter 19, 19 to 21, 2 Kings chapter 2, verses 6 through 14. That's the two texts. Again, two separate outlines. Don't merge them together. And that's just key. Obviously, read it over and 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 over, and then just start asking yourself, why did they put these two together? And is there a danger here? Is there some kind of problem? Is it going to create difficulties in correctly interpreting the text. Just a lot of that you're just looking for. Some of that you obviously are writing down. You're writing down your outlines, obviously. And some of those other things, you can answer it on paper if you would like, especially those who send me all of their notes, which is great. Again, anyone can send me all of their work to newsif@yahoo.com. Newsif@yahoo.com. That's newsif@yahoo.com. My voice is not quite ready to work yet this morning, but that's okay. All right, so are you ready? All right, here's what we're going to do. If you have your Bibles, 1 Kings. Now, 1 Kings 19 to 21, and 2 Kings 2, 6 to 14. I want to make sure I stated that correctly. All right, we're going to go back to 1 Kings chapter 19, but we're not going to start in verse 19. I know that's the text, 1 Kings 19 to 21, but remember I said that we need to look at the transition. We need to build a bridge because let me just give you an example. 1 Kings chapter 19, verse 19. Look at how the verse starts. So he departed thence and found Elisha, the son of Shaphat, who was plowing with 12 yoke of oxen before him. And he with the 12th, and Elijah passed by him and cast his mantle upon him. All right, now, I understand that we could probably just jump in right there, but I think to do that, we're going to miss something and something that we need to look at and we need to try to figure out, okay? So let's go further back into 1 Kings 19 and try to build that bridge, build a transition to all of a sudden Elijah is there plowing. He's plowing with 12 yoke of oxen, and Elijah passes by. So as Elisha, he's plowing with 12 oxen. And then Elijah shows up and casts his mantle upon him. Before we just jump right into that, it's almost like broken off from what comes before it. I want to build a transition because I think it's important. All right, so if we go back to 1 Kings chapter 19, we know that we found Elijah in a very depressed, discouraged, and, suicidal state. He's sitting under a juniper tree and he wants to die, okay? Now, we can go back and listen to everything we discussed. Part of me wants to go back and review everything, but I'm going to try to move forward. I know we have to go back, but I want to go back, but while we're going back, using it to move forward, not just to go back and review. But he's sitting under that juniper tree and wants to die. And then, in a sense, God steps in a supernatural way to minister to Elijah. But what's interesting is it's supernatural intervention, but the use of ordinary means. Right? Because as he's laying under the juniper tree, an angel touched him and said unto him, "Arise and eat." And he looked, and behold, there was a cake, bacon on the coals, and a cruse of water at his head. He did eat and drink, and he lay down again. And you notice what starts happening here. It's eating, drinking, and sleeping. Eating, drinking, and sleeping. Ordinary means to help minister to him, to help him overcome his discouragement, his depression, and his suicidal thoughts. And what's interesting is yesterday we looked up from a website, a psychiatric website, saying that a key element in treating and preventing depression is sleep, diet, and exercise. And we have sleep and diet here. And then after he eats, verse 8, he arose and did eat and drink and went in the strength of that meat 40 days and 40 nights unto Horeb, the mount of God. Now, what's interesting is he takes a 40-day journey. Well, there's your exercise. So he's got the eating, the drinking, the sleeping, and the exercise. It's just interesting that all of that's right there. The way the angel ministers to him is not just touches him and, oh, it's all gone. He feels better. No. He touches him, but then has him doing ordinary things, eating, drinking, sleeping, and exercise. I just find that interesting, and I think that that's an important part of our interpretation and application of the text. So then as he arrives at Mount Horeb, he came thither into a cave, he lodged there, and then the word of the Lord came unto him and said unto him, "What doest thou here, Elijah. Now here I think is still a part of God ministering to him, seeking to give him the remedy to treat him from this discouragement, depression, and suicidal thoughts. And one of the things he has to do is he has to be confronted in a sense with where he is, what he is doing, kind of not just where he is geographically, but where he is mentally, where he is emotionally, where he is spiritually. In other words, he is being confronted with himself. What are you doing here? And we see the reality of how Elijah is thinking. Because we see it again in verse 10. This is 1 Kings chapter 19, verse 10. He said, I have been very jealous for the Lord God of hosts, for the children of Israel have forsaken thy covenant, thrown down thine altars, slain thy prophets with the sword, and I, even I, am only left. They seek my life to take it away. And this really Elijah begins to speak the reality of how he feels. And this is how he feels. Look, I'm it. I'm the only one trying to fix this problem. I've done everything I can. I was involved. You used me in this miraculous power of fire coming down from heaven and killing 450 of the prophets of Baal. I've done all of this, but nothing changed. Nothing. Ahab, no, he didn't change. Jezebel didn't change. Israel didn't change. I'm the only one. Now they want to kill me. He's expressing the reality of what he feels. He's being confronted to speak the truth of how he feels, which is absolutely critical if you're going to move on spiritually. If you're going to overcome some of these issues, you have to deal with the reality. You can try to put on a fake mask, smile, and say everything's okay. Sometimes you've got to be honest. So he gets confronted here, which again is a key part of this, all right? Then what's very interesting here, God tells him to go forth, stand upon the mount before the Lord, and behold, the Lord passed by, and a great strong wind rent the mountains, break in pieces the rocks before the Lord. But the Lord was not in the wind, and after the wind, an earthquake. But the Lord was not in the earthquake, and after the earthquake, a fire. But the Lord was not in the fire, and after the fire, a still small voice. Now, this is just, to me, fascinating. We talked about this yesterday, but again, we're trying to build this bridge. So you got to stay with me, all right? To build the bridge, we got to go back in a sense to the other. I know the way the Bible study starts this week is basically think of it as a kind of a river, and that we were on this side of the river, right? I'm holding up my left hand. And then all of a sudden, we jump to the other side of the river. Now I'm holding up my right hand. And that's kind of the way the Bible study goes. Hey, last week we were over here. Now we're here. And we just move. And almost like there's this river in between the two sections. But I want to build a bridge across the river. So we have to go back to the other side. And we have to see how this begins to transition, because I think this is very important. And what I think is important here is when you read this, a lot of people's like, oh, so this is God teaching us how we're supposed to hear God. We're supposed to wait for a little still small voice. And that's not what's going on here. What's happening here is connected to everything that's gone before. And what came before is Elijah having this major, confrontation and contest with the prophets of Baal. They called upon their God to bring fire down. Their God didn't answer. Their God is not real. Elijah, fire comes down, consumes the sacrifice, does everything that it does. He kills the 450. And Elijah, from everything that we can read in the text, completely believed that miracle, that miraculous evidence of God's power and that he is the true God, that from that Ahab, Israel, everyone was going to then acknowledge God to be the true God. They were going to repent. There was going to be a revival. Everything was going to be fixed. But what he soon found out is nobody repented. Okay. What he found out is Ahab just went and told Jezebel what he did. Jezebel says, hey, I'm going to kill you. He's like, what's the point in all of this? So in a roundabout way, God is going to demonstrate something to him. Yeah, you saw this big miraculous display and you thought that I was in that display in a way that was going to lead to repentance and change everything. But it didn't happen that way. Now you're discouraged. Now you're depressed. Now you want to die. So he's going to show him kind of an example of this. Go stand there. Boom. there's wind, there's earthquake, there's fire. God's not there. Well, we just saw a miraculous display of power. In a sense, God, I'm not saying it wasn't God, it was God, but he wasn't in it in a way to change or, overcome, fix all of the problems in Israel. He wasn't there. And so he's trying to demonstrate that maybe you don't understand exactly how I'm working and what I am doing. And then you look at, so then a still small voice, verse 13, 1 Kings 19:13. And it was so when Elijah heard it that he wrapped his face in his mantle, went out, stood in the entering in of the cave, and behold, there came a voice unto him and said, what doest thou here, Elijah? So he demonstrates, wait a minute, maybe you don't quite understand, because you would think the wind, the earthquake, the fire, but it's still small voice. So see, Elijah, you got to be thinking, you got to be seeing beyond what you think is evident, what you think is obvious. What would be obvious is wind, earthquake, fire. There's God, but maybe you're misunderstanding everything, right? So then he asks him again, confronts him again with himself. Elijah doesn't change his story. Hey, I'm still the only one. He still doesn't, I don't completely get it. And then God lets him know that, hey, you're not the only one. Okay, in fact, if you go to verse 18, I have 7,000 in Israel, all the knees which have not bowed unto Baal, and every mouth which have not kissed him. So then he fixes his perception, because we see that Elijah's perception is completely wrong. You're not the only one. But there's something interesting that happens between all of that. And that's what I want to use to build our bridge. All right, here we go. I didn't quite see the significance of this until yesterday when we read this. And then I was like, wait, we're going to have to go back, because this is the bridge to everything that comes after. Here we go. So Elijah, once again, is like, hey, everyone's turned against God. I'm the only one. He's expressing the same thing. God immediately just says, hey, look, here's what I want you to do. And this is fascinating, because God, in a sense, now, this is very key. I think we didn't talk about this yesterday. I think this is very key in moving past your discouragement, your depression, is he turns his eyes. Okay, I've confronted you with yourself. You've acknowledged what's going on inside of you. Now it's time to turn your focus from you. And now your focus is going to be put on others. And now what you're going to do is, you may not understand everything. It may not make any sense to you. It may bother you. It may be discouragement, but what you need to do is obey what you do know. And I'm going to give you something that you do know, and here's what you need to do. There's a lot right there. Sometimes in your Christian life, you got to stop focusing on yourself. You got to focus on others. And sometimes when you don't know what to do and it seems confusing, there's no answers, you pick up and do what you do know. Sometimes you can only focus on what you do know. Focus on what you know and focus on others instead of focusing on yourself. I think there's a little bit of that right here. But here's interesting. I want you to pay close attention to this. And the Lord said unto him, go, return on thy way to the wilderness of Damascus. All right, so he's giving him a geographical location he's to go. He's to go back to Damascus. And when thou comest, anoint Hazael to be king over Syria. Stop right there. What's going on? You have Ahab, right? Evil. Doing more evil than all the kings before him. You have Jezebel. I think you could say he met his match in evil, right? Jezebel and Ahab. I mean, come on. You talk about a power couple of evil. There they are. Elijah really thought that the miracle, the fire from heaven, was going to fix everything, but it did not fix everything. And he's greatly bothered by that. So he's like, okay, here's what you're going to go do. You're going to go to Damascus. All right, Damascus. All right. Why Damascus? Well, when you get there, you're going to anoint Hazael to be king over Syria. why is he anointing Hazael king over Syria? Remember, the problem is the king of Israel. What's going on here? I don't know if I have it completely figured out, but I think it's interesting in this point. Here's God basically showing Elijah, hey, you're going to go anoint him to be king. In other words, God is appointing Hazael to be king over Syria. God's the one in charge. It's almost like, hey, you're very frustrated right now about the Ahab situation. You're very frustrated about the Jezebel situation. But let me just show you. Okay, what I want you to do is no fanfare. You're just going to go to Damascus and you're going to find Hazael and you're going to anoint him to be king over Syria. And if I was in the situation, I'd be raising my hand going, but wait, why don't I go to Israel and anoint someone to be king to get rid of Ahab? Remember, Ahab's the problem. Jezebel's the problem. Why am I going to Damascus? Remember, the people who want to kill me, it's the king of Israel. It's Jezebel. Why am I going to Damascus to anoint Hazael to be king of Syria? Why? From a human perspective, that doesn't seem to make any sense. So why? What is the significance of anointing Hazael to be king over Syria? Here's what I want you to do. I want you to look up everything you can find out about Hazael. Everything you can discover about Hazael. Everything. All right. And if you have a Bible dictionary, if you're using the Bible dictionary that we use here, Nelson's New Illustrated Bible Dictionary, on page, page 545, there is an entry on Hazael. And there's going to be some interesting things going on here. There's going to be some interesting, look at everything. Just read the entry about Hazael and try to, and I want you to write it out. Maybe this is why God is telling him that he's to anoint him to be king. It's just interesting because in a way, it demonstrates, now I'm in charge of who's in charge. I'm in charge. I determine who's in charge. God determines who's in charge. Don't we read that in the New Testament? That all earthly governmental authority is appointed by God? Ahab's over there in Israel, but you're going to Damascus. And you're going to anoint Hazael to be king over Syria. And then, look what happens next. Verse 16. And Jehu, the son of Nimshi, shall thou anoint to be king over Israel. So first you're going to Damascus, and you're going to anoint Hazael to be king over Syria. Then you're going to find Jehu, the son of Nimshi, shall thou anoint to be king over Israel. Okay, now we're getting somewhere. Okay, now I get to, my first question is like, why am I going to Damascus? But okay. So he goes to Damascus. He's going to go to Damascus. If we do this in order, Hazael king over Syria first, then Jehu, the son of Nimshi, to be king over Israel. Why Jehu? What is the significance of Jehu? What is the significance of Hazael? What's the significance of them? Look up Jehu. And when you look up Hazael, you're going to find some connection there with Jehu. You go look it all up. I think you're going to find a lot there that's going to make you go, this is very interesting. Or at least I think it's interesting. Maybe you won't think it's interesting. If you don't think it's interesting, at least fake it and pretend that it's interesting and send me emails going, this is so interesting, even if you don't believe it. Okay, all right. Just for my sake. Okay, just for my sake. Now, again, I just find it, and I want to stress this again because I think this is so key. Hey, it's not in the earthquake. It's not in the wind. It's not in the fire. Hey, that big display of power where the 450 prophets were killed didn't change anything. But you know what? In a still small voice, you just go anoint him, and you go anoint him because I'm still in charge. I'm still in charge, and who's in charge? I'm still in control of who's in control. I'm still the power of those in power. I'm the one determining it. But it's going to be done not in a spectacular way. No, it's you just go anoint them. I find that fascinating, right? Because that connects it with the whole, the earth, the fire, the earthquake, the fire, the wind. It connects all of that. It all makes sense when you put this together, right? But wait, one other thing. So we have the king of Syria, Hazael. We have Jehu, the king of Israel, and then Elisha, the son of Shaphat, of Abel Maholah, shall thou anoint to be prophet in thy room. All right, so now 2 kings you're going to anoint, and then you're going to anoint Elisha, the son of Shaphat, of Abel Maholah, shall thou anoint to be prophet in thy room. All right? It's Maholah. Maholah, I think, is actually how you say it. I always want to say Maholah, but it's Maholah, I think, is the actual way to pronounce it. Abel Maholah shall thou anoint to be prophet in thy room. So it's interesting. 2 governmental earthly powers you're going to anoint, and then you're going to anoint someone to be a prophet, which is Elisha, the son of Shaphat, of Abel Maholah, shall thou anoint to be prophet in thy room. All right. Now, 1 Kings, I'm going to look at 1 Kings 19:16, just and a number of translations really quick, because I think this is interesting. I'm going to do this. Hang on. 1 Kings. I'm going to look this up. I do this all the time in real time. 1 Kings 19:16. All right. I'm going to go to BibleHub.com. All right. Now, this is interesting. I want you to hear this. All right. New International Version. Also, anoint Jehu, the son of Nimshi, king over Israel, and anoint Elisha, son of Shaphat, from Abel Maholah, to succeed you as prophet. New Living Translation. Then anoint Jehu, grandson of Nimshi, to be king of Israel, and anoint Elisha, son of Shaphat, from the town of Abel Maholah, to replace you as my prophet. Right? English Standard Version. And Jehu, the son of Nimshi, you shall anoint to be king over Israel, and Elisha, the son of Shaphat, of Abel Maholah, shall you anoint to be prophet in your place. So you're going to anoint 2 kings, and then you're going to anoint a prophet who's going to take your place. Just anointing people is the still small voice, right? Hey, it's no display. There's not going to be some confrontation, fire from heaven, killing of 450 people. You're just going to go and anoint. You're going to go and anoint. And that going and anointing, verse 19, so he departed thence and have found Elisha, the son of Shaphat, who was plowing with 12 yoke of oxen. All right. So then the text, and I'm going to lose my voice here. I apologize. The text just goes right to Elisha. But you can't just get to Elisha without considering the 2 kings that he anointed. What is the significance of anointing those kings? Now, we understand the significance of anointing Elisha. Elisha is going to be Elijah's replacement. So here's the thing. Elijah, I know you're discouraged. I know you're depressed. I know you're frustrated. You saw all of this power. Nothing changed. You want to give up, but I'm going to give you a living illustration of how this works. Maybe it's not in the mighty display that you need to be focusing on. You're going to do something quietly. You're going to do something almost in a more private way. You're going to anoint 3 people. These 3 anointings is going to change the governmental political leadership in Damascus. It's going to change the governmental political leadership in Israel, and it's going to change, in a sense, the spiritual direction, because a new prophet is going to take your place. Now, here's what I want you to do. I want you to read everything you can about Hazael and everything you can about Jehu. How are they connected? How are their interaction? How do they end up being connected? Is there any connection between Hazael and Jehu? Is there any significance of them being anointed kings? Right? Then I want you to look at Elisha and see how is Elisha in any way connected or have any interaction with Hazael and with Jehu. That's what I want you to do. That's the bridge that then gets us into this section. Before Elijah shows up and finds Elisha plowing with 12 oxen and throws his mantle on him, before that happens, I want you to have this other background to see, okay, because do we just, oh, no big deal. Okay, go anoint him, go anoint him, go anoint him. All right, let's just move on. And now let's focus on Elisha. No. I need to understand why in the world this is happening. There's got to be some significance here. And I think when you start looking at the three names, Hazael, Jehu, and Elisha, and you start studying and looking, I think you're going to see maybe interaction, connection, you're going to see significance, and you tell me what you discover and what you find. All right. Again, the Bible study exercise, it's not for me to do. I'm not supposed to do all the work. I'm supposed to just guide you. That's all I'm supposed to really do. And then sometimes I come back and then throw in and add teaching. The main thing is just trying to get you involved right there, trying to get you, again, moving you from a passive listener to an active participant. So that's what you need to do today or tomorrow or whenever. Well, actually, you need to start it as soon as possible. Because then we have to get into the actual text that we're studying, right? The actual text we're studying, I think, requires this bridge. The bridge to this week's study is Hazael, Jehu, being anointed as kings of Damascus and Israel, and then Elisha being anointed as the prophet. Elisha kind of, in a sense, shows up on the other side of the river. The bridge, to me, is the anointing of Hazael and Jehu. That is the bridge that gets us to Elisha. But why? And again, if all you have to do is just go anoint someone as king, then Elijah, I think, seemed to think that the miracle was going to be the thing that changes everything. Clearly, Ahab and Jezebel are not going to change. They're going to be replaced by Jehu. You're like, well, why didn't you just have me do that before all of this happened? Why didn't you just anoint me? Because God works in his way, not the way we think. See, the way we think is fire from heaven, boom, revival, everything's different. God's like, no, it doesn't always work your way. My way may be, and we could argue, does it make sense to do it this way? What are the consequences of anointing these people king? What happens? Hazael, Jehu, Elisha. 3 individuals. I want you to look up everything about Hazael, everything about Jehu. I want you to see how they're interconnected. Do they have any interaction with one another? Is there any connection at all? Why them? And then consider Elisha. I don't want you to have to do look up everything about Elisha, but I want you to look up everything about Elisha that could be connected to Hazael or Jehu. What's the connection there? That's what I want you to see. Because all of these 3, I think ultimately Hazael and Jehu are the bridge that gets us to Elisha. But once we get on the other side of the river, then these 3, how do they interact? What is the significance? Why one of the last things God does in a sense to prepare or to help Elijah out of his depression and suicidal thoughts is to say, here's what you need to do. And he's now got to be focusing on someone else. He's got to get his eyes off himself. He's got other people to focus on now. I think that's a significant application here. All right, I'm going to stop right there. Oh, there's so much more I wanted to do, but I hope that gets us there. I hope it does. Doing a guided study like this, where I'm just trying to guide you, is I'm still trying to perfect it. I'm still trying to get better at it. When you lose your voice in the middle, it's not very helpful. Okay. But we worked through that. But it's sometimes it's like, oh, I want to, like, I could right now open up the Bible dictionary and I could start reading. I'll just give you an example. All right. Hazael. Let me just give you an example of what I wanted to do. A Syrian office official whom the prophet Elijah anointed king over Syria at God's command. Sometime between 845 and 843 BC, Ben-Hadad, king of Syria, sent Hazael to the prophet Elijah to ask whether the king would recover from an illness. Elisha answered that Hazael himself was destined to become king. The next day, Hazael assassinated Ben-Hadad, took the throne. Hazael immediately attacked Ramoth-Gilead, seriously wounding King Joram of Israel. At the end of Jehu's reign over Israel, Hazael attacked the Israelites east of the Jordan River. Oh, what now? Now we have a possible connection. But isn't that crazy? There's a lot going on there. Hazael assassinated Ben-Hadad. So the person that God anoints, once anointed to become king, assassinates somebody. What? There's a lot of questions we could have here. Now, some of those accounts that don't occur till like much later in 2 Kings. Like we read about that. I think the assassination. I think we read about it in 2 Kings chapter 8. I think it's verses 7 through 15. The dictionary has that reference, but I haven't verified it. So I always put a question mark when I see a reference in any book. I put a question mark until I go verify it myself. But and then at the end of Jehu's reign, Hazael attacks the Israelites east of the Jordan River. Yeah. Why Hazael? It just seems so crazy. Hey, that's who you're going to go anoint. And now you see that the interaction with Israel. Now you see interaction, right? And again, Hazael is a Syrian official who was whom the prophet of Elijah anointed king over Syria. It's just fascinating. Why him? And then why Jehu? And then you can look up Jehu. And then look at any of their do they have any interaction with Elisha? Any interaction with Elisha? Sometimes Elijah, Elisha. Hopefully I haven't mixed them up. But it's just so. Hey, look, I know you're depressed. I know you're discouraged. Now here's what I want you to go do. Anoint these people. It just seems almost so random. And we just kind of read right past it, and then we're immediately over. Okay, here's Elisha. All right, now let's read about Elisha. Whoa, slow down. Slow down. What in the world, why are these people being anointed? And how does it fit with everything that comes before? Well, there you go. There's more I could say, but I want you to just start processing that. Now, we may conclude that, hey, you know what? It really isn't any big deal. There's nothing significant there at all. Maybe that will be your conclusion, or maybe you're going to be like, wait a minute here. This is interesting. I don't know. I want your feedback. newsif@yahoo.com, newsif@yahoo.com, newsif@yahoo.com. It's hurting me because now what I want to do is I want to say, you know what? For Sunday school this morning here at Victory Baptist Church, starting at 10 a.m., we're just gonna study all of this. We're gonna study Hazael, Jehu, and Elisha, and we're going to see if we can put all of them together. And that's what I want to do, but I can't. We got to do the Niagara Creed. But now I want to pursue this. I want to see. I'm just interested. I'm interested. And now what I'm figuring out is how we're going to work this. How are we going to accomplish this week and yet be able to move forward into the text? It's almost like we should have, like, a whole week of study could have been dedicated to figuring out the significance of Hazael, Jehu, and Elisha being anointed at this point. Like, we could spend a week just working on that. So I don't know how we're going to fit this all in, but we'll see. We'll see. All right, there you have it. newsif@yahoo.com, newsif@yahoo.com. There is your introduction. I know it's strange introduction, but we need to build that bridge. We need to build that bridge, all right? I look forward to hearing from you. Everyone have a great week of studying God's Word. May God bless you as you study His Word. Dedicate yourself to it. Dig in. Do the work. And hopefully by the end of the week, you'll know that this whole story and this whole situation here in 1 Kings and 2 Kings better than you did before you started, all right? Can't wait to hear from you. Everyone have a great day. God bless.